Hey, friends.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to episode 8
of Holistically Curious, the podcast.
Holistically Curious, the podcast.
Yes. Welcome. How you doing, Teresa? What's up?
I am doing so awesome sauce.
Yay.
Speaking of sauce, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, but when our listeners hear this, they'll be just about digesting their Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, they'll be done with their leftovers by the time they start listening to this, I think.
Well, that's true. That's true. And what is it? Tryptophan?
The trypty thing that...
The trypty and the turkey will just about be wearing off. So
That's true. And that's probably a good thing. I mean, we're probably all going to need to get up and take a long walk, or several walks. Several walks. I know I am.
And then,
yes,
it will no longer be bad luck to put your Christmas tree up.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't know that was a thing.
It's a total thing. You don't put your tree up until after Thanksgiving, and you don't take it down till at least January 1.
Oh, no, because I totally put my tree up yesterday. I'm gonna burn some sage. That'll take care.
Just smudge the heck out of that tree. It'll be fine.
Anytime exactly, you just smudge it and everything's fine.
But I'm so excited, Kim, to put up our tree and then to put the angel topper on top.
Oh, interesting, because I think there's probably a theory about the whole angel versus star on top of the tree.
Angel rocks, star knocks, something like that.
Okay, that was really bad.
Okay, I have another theory.
Okay.
To each his own.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's just interesting. Like, some people are star people and some people are angel people. And all people are good people.
Speaking of which,
yes,
I want to explore the possibility that angels aren't people at all whatsoever. Ooh. And that's my topic for today.
What? Are you freaking kidding me? Okay.
No.
Okay.
We're going to talk about angels, and I'm glad you brought it up because the first thing I wanted to talk about is what angels are not. So when I say angels, I'm not talking about all the different... what's the word? Give me a word for a thing that's all the different ways you can think about
Various?
it.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, all the various, blah, blah, blah.
Words are hard.
Words are really hard, and there's so many when you have a podcast.
It's really sad when that's your thing is a podcast and you can't find words. But continue on, my friend.
Okay, so I'm not talking about all the different things that we think of casually as angels. Oh, you're such an angel. You're an angel too.
Thanks.
Not that kind. Traditional angels are probably not, in my opinion, your loved ones in heaven, although they're certainly beloved and holy spirits. But your loved ones are probably not what I'm going to talk about now as technically angels. And your angels are also not your spirit guides. Someday we'll have to do an episode on spirit guides, so we'll get more into that. But spirit guides are traditionally thought to be very, very learned spirits who have taken on that task of guiding you. So they're certainly well above you in the hierarchy of heaven, but not angels traditionally. So there are also beings that are related to angels, but they're elemental beings. So nature spirits could be regarded as the cousins of the angelic family, but they've got a different energy and a different path. They're the devas, fairies, elves, and gnomes. Those are the angels, and I'm making air quotes. Those are the angels who preside over all plants and minerals. So you commune with those beings when you walk in nature or tend a garden. And the devas are the nature spirits in the human body. Devas keep the body working on a physical level. So those are the things that traditional technical angels are not. Let's talk about what they are. Of course, they've been mentioned hundreds of times in the Bible. And the dictionary says that an angel is a spiritual being believed to act as an attendant, agent, or messenger of God. In her book, Ask Your Angels, Alma Danielle beautifully describes their nature. So she says, angels are citizens of inner space whose responsibilities include the harmonious organization of the inhabited universe. Some people believe angels are the thoughts of God, while others hold that they are the creation of the Divine Mother Spirit. Angels work with our souls in conjunction with the universal mind to help us raise our spirits by reminding us of the truth, purity, and goodness that exists within everything. Break for you to go,
I was going to, but I didn't want to interrupt.
I know. I could feel it.
I was literally just thinking, I wish she would say that one sentence over again.
I mean, like angels.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Yeah, they're really special.
Nice.
But yeah, what a beautiful mission. What an amazing task to be given as that spiritual being.
Yeah, and what a giving thing to do. I mean, who among us would ever aspire to be just giving and giving of truth, purity, and goodness? Oh, we might say we're aspiring, but we're not going there.
I don't know. I want to.
Yeah.
Once I get rid of this meat puppet, I'm totally there.
And probably everybody knows by now, but meat puppet is your body. Well, I think it's meant to be all of our bodies, but I always think of it as your body.
Just my body as a meat puppet. Yeah. The rest of y'all are like Adonises and Adonisettes. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm an Adonisette. No, I'm just a physical incarnation, and you're a meat puppet.
I'm a meat puppet. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Angels.
We digress.
We do digress. So all major religions of the world include some version of angels. So they may call them different things or refer to them a little differently, but they all have the same purpose and function. So in Hebrews, it says, "Be careful when entertaining strangers, for by doing so, many have entertained angels unawares." So that's beautiful. I love that. You've got to.
Yeah, I love that.
You've got to be aware of how you treat everyone. I kind of like that the same way that you acknowledge the goddess inside of yourself and everyone else as well. May not be a literal angel, but you should still entertain everyone as if they were.
I wonder if my goddess doesn't appreciate me referring to her as a meat puppet.
Well, she's inside the meat puppet. Well, yeah, she may not.
Or she doesn't refer to her encasing as being a meat puppet. But anyway.
More respectful.
I like that. I love that from the Bible, because I love how in real world you hear examples of like people who were just really kind to, say, that little old man or that lady that used to come into the diner or whatever every day, and maybe they weren't easy to deal with or whatever, and they always took extra special care of them, and then they end up passing on and leaving, say, that waitress or waiter a nice gift once in their will or whatever. And it's just true that not that you do anything to get something in return, but you just don't know.
And actually, I see what you're saying, because you're not doing it with the prospect of something like that, but it's a beautiful example of how karma returns to you. So,
yeah, exactly.
Listen to this. The Talmud says every blade of grass has an angel bending over it saying, "Grow, grow." Every flower, tree, raindrop, and living thing has an angel overseeing its life cycle. Shivvies.
I know, I totally got shivvies. It's just, wow. We're all spirit. We're all spirit. And then we have these spiritual beings that are not incarnated. It's like that feeling of being nurtured and cared for, and that somebody's there besides the ultimate almighty, who's just intimately connected and looking out for everything and everyone.
And even though, of course, angels have literally no gender, but even though they're sort of identified as male or female, regardless of which, It's a very feeling of having a maternal entity caring for you, and that's a very loving feeling. So there's been a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, Kim, that have shared their personal encounters with angels and people in places you wouldn't think of. So George Washington, first president of the United States, he couldn't swim. And when he was at Valley Forge, he fell out of a boat and he was sinking, and he felt hands push him up to the surface, saving his life. So he believed that he felt the hands of an angel.
Okay, that gave me shivers.
I know. This one's really going to do it for you. So there's a group of 6 Russian cosmonauts who were atheists, and they sighted a band of angels up in space on 2 separate occasions. They were performing medical experiments when suddenly they were blinded by a brilliant orange glow. They saw 7 giant figures in the form of humans, but with wings and mist like halos. They appeared to be hundreds of feet tall, with a wingspan as great as a jetliner, and their faces were round with cherubic smiles, and they were all identical. The band of angels followed the space capsule for about 10 minutes, and then it vanished. But 12 days later, all 7 angels returned, and this time 3 more scientists saw them as well. And listen, they were smiling as if they shared a glorious secret. So, and I have to say, Kim, when I first read this, I thought, oh, those are space aliens, because, you know, I love me some space aliens.
That's exactly what popped in my head when you first started talking about it.
But then I think it's that smile as if they shared a glorious secret that makes it more.
And what I don't understand is, why have I not heard this before? Like, why don't we hear these things?
Yes. It's not salacious enough.
True.
Yeah. Angels raise your vibration with their very being. So their energy is light and pure, and we can pray to them and look to them for protection and inspiration. And traditionally, they have a hierarchy. We'll put a link to this book, Orders of Angelic Beings, in our show notes. It's really interesting. So there's different spheres for angels. And the first are seraphim, which are the highest hierarchy, and they regulate the movement of the heavens as it emanates from God. Then there's the cherubim. They're the proclaimers and protectors of God's glorious presence. Next are thrones, which are companion angels of the planets. I love that thought. Like, there is an angel for everybody and everything, including our earth. And boy, I feel like we need it right now.
Yeah, our poor little earth is desperately saying, help me, angel, help me.
Yes, it is.
And that poor little angel's working her tootie or his tootie off up there.
The second sphere are angels who work as heavenly governors. So there's the dominions who govern activities of the lower angelic groups, and they integrate the spiritual and material world. Next are the virtues, who are able to beam massive levels of divine energy. This one is going to be your favorite angel, I think. The power bearers are the keepers of the collective history, or Akashic records.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. I never had heard that they were called power bearers. And to me, that's so powerful. Well, powerful.
Yeah.
Because, man, I think information is everything.
Oh, yes.
And I'm so excited about the Akashic records. And, you know, our grandmother, she always said that once you get to heaven, you know all things. And that used to be so intriguing to me because I want to know all the things.
And I love that you bring up our grandmother, Wanda, because it's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Grandma.
I knew that. Oh.
Yeah, I knew you knew it. Yeah.
No, tomorrow.
Nope, today.
Today.
We're going to have a sisterly argument right here, right now.
Okay. I knew it was today or tomorrow. Happy birthday, Grandma. Let's see. Okay. The third sphere is a heavenly messenger's principality. This includes guardian angels of large groups, from families to cities to nations. Hello! We have like angels over just our family. Like, We have one, you have one, I have one, our sister has one, our mom has one. And then we got another one. Like,
wow.
Yeah. That's special.
That makes you feel pretty darn special.
It does, actually. It does.
Yeah. It makes you feel very loved. I mean, just think of the love. First of all, that the Almighty gives us these spirits to watch over us, how much love. And then also how much love from each of these individual beings that choose to do this for us. Wow. It's incomprehensible to me.
It is. And something to think of next time that we're down on ourselves is how amazing we must be. Okay, forget about all the other people. Just how amazing must Kim Balstead be to be given a heavenly spirit like that, an angel, just for herself. And then each and every one of the rest of us are equally as special. Yeah, I'm thinking pretty highly of Teresa York right now.
Yeah, well, you should totally feel highly of Teresa York.
I am. I'm loving her.
You just go, girl. You keep on loving that girl. You just do it.
So now we're going to talk about the archangels. So this is interesting too. New information for me is one of the archangels, Gabriel, is also known as Gabrielle.
Ah.
Both of those mean God is my strength. In some areas of the world, Gabriel/Gabrielle is seen as female, but biblical text refers to this angel as male in gender. He or she is the angel who came to Mary and her cousin Elizabeth, pronouncing the birth of their sons. In matters of the arts or any kind of creativity, call on Gabriel. He or she is the guardian of emotions and relationships. It's interesting that I almost wonder if Gabriel/Gabrielle has, and of course they all do to some extent, masculine and feminine traits.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. I don't know. I'm talking about something I totally don't know, but in my mind, it seems like in spirit, you're more apt to be, you have all of those. You have a union between your masculine and feminine, and you're in balance with those.
It's so far above our pay grade.
Yeah.
And look at us. For one thing, we're using human words to try to describe it, and it can't ever be done. The next one we would consider masculine because it's Michael, and that translates to he who is like God. And traditionally, he is said to champion the people of God in warfare and oppose those who are supposed to be the enemies of God in the discernment of humans. Okay. Everyone has their own feelings in the way that they view religion and spirituality, and I'll go with Michael as opposing those enemies of God. If you can look at God as the infinite, the creator, all of the words for God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't by any means mean just the God of Christianity or any of the gods of any religion specifically. So I just didn't want that to sound not inclusive.
Right. You mean the one, the eternal, the Om, the all-pervading energetic force that created the whole universe.
Yes. So that brings us to Raphael, whose name translates to God has healed. He's charged with healing the earth and medical missions. And it's claimed that Raphael gave Noah the much prized medical book after the flood.
Oh, I didn't even know about that. I didn't know there was a medical book after the flood.
I didn't either, but
that's fascinating.
It was much needed. Oh, much prized. It was much prized.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it entailed all the knowledge that they'd built up over, thousands of years as far as tending and taking care of people using all the plants and all the nature and all of that.
So if you're a healer or you need to be healed, invoke Raphael. And his power can be brought to bear on physical, mental, and emotional illness. The angels work in amazing ways. They're both grand and they're subtle. They plant thoughts in our minds as a gardener plants seeds, or they show up physically, or they touch you with a human feeling hand. They can inspire us, they can heal us, they enlighten us. Some people see and commune with angels just as they would with their friends or family, but others feel the influence of angels in a much more subtle way. So an angel can be felt in a breeze or smelled on the scent of a rose. An angel whispers of inspiration, and it can be difficult to hear when your energy is not aligned to them. But one can learn to be attuned and grow closer to the angel's perfect energy. So some of the things that block the voice of angels around you are negativity, an inability to forgive oneself, or a strong focus on the external world rather than your internal spirit. So it's just like anything else. It's just like my husband and the TV. So,
okay.
Like if he's focused on that TV, he is not going to hear me no matter what loving, wonderful advice that I give him.
Which I'm sure you do quite often.
Yeah. Yeah. Loving and wonderful advice. Yeah.
I totally see where you're coming from. And I think too, it's the thing of being in spirit, inspiration. You have to be in spirit, which means you have to be in tune with your spirit and open and really, in essence, merge with that energy to be receptive to hearing those whispers of inspiration. If you're out there focused on buying your new car or this or that, or just really into the materiality of the world, it's harder to retain that sense of spirit, I think.
Yes, girl, yes. And so to attune yourself with the angels, be calm, loving, peaceful, create a physical world around you, which is pleasing to the angelic realm. And that could be just a clean, tidy home or fields of grass, flowers. They're equally pleasing to the angels.
Mm-hmm. Hey, that's another good reason to clear up that clutter in your house. Harking back to your old episode,
I mean, seriously, it's repetition, repetition, repetition. Clear the clutter, beautiful nutrients into your body, releasing the negativity. It's really, I don't know about the listeners, but boy, it's hitting home for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
So the last thing is invite the angels to speak to you and be receptive to their words. So when going to sleep at night, speak aloud or in your heart, I welcome you, angel, to my soul and to my physical body. I embrace your words and your guidance.
I love that. I definitely believe in inviting and asking and listening. Listen and trust in what you hear. You're going to try this tonight?
Yeah, I think I will try this tonight. I mean, normally when I go to sleep at night, I speak aloud and in my heart that I wish our listeners would stay curious. But this sounds good too.
I like that. That's awesome.
It is awesome. And you know what else is awesome?
What?
Stay tuned and you'll hear.
Oh. Hi, friends. Teresa and I want to tell you about an awesome company you're going to want to check out. It's called Lumenkind. That's Lumenkind. They believe that by discovering and staying true to our intentions, we're able to live a more meaningful, productive, and peaceful life.
Our friends at Lumenkind gave us samples of their really cool mindful marks to try out. Mindful marks are beautiful, temporary wearables to help remind you to be present and remind you of your intentions.
Yeah, they're really simple and fun tools, and they come in a collection of designs with suggested intentions that are designed to focus your mind and calm your spirit. Things like, I express myself and listen openly, or I am fully present in this moment.
So you can use the suggested intentions that accompany the mindful marks, or you can create your own meanings for each one. It's fully personalizable.
Customizable.
You can use the suggestion.
I think we should totally leave that in. That's right, Teresa. And they're super easy to use. You just select your intention and find a place on your body to be your visual reminder. Then you use your mindful mark throughout your day to just remind you to breathe and reconnect with your greater purpose.
We thought it'd be fun, you and I, to wear the same mindful mark for a week and kind of compare results. So we chose the one entitled Center. its suggested intention is I trust myself. And since I needed a little of that, that's what we went with as our intention.
Well, I can always use a little of that myself.
I was being polite. I knew that you needed it too.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we are sisters. We do know each other pretty well.
Pretty well. So what was your experience, Kim?
It was really interesting because I didn't know, I was open to whatever. And so I kind of forgot I had it on for maybe a day. And then I was working away, and something that I normally would have second guessed myself about, it was something to do with my work. I just happened to look down and see my mindful mark. And it just reminded me that intention just came rushing back. I trust myself. And it's amazing how just that little thing can really turn your outlook around. And I just thought, okay, I'm trusting myself. I'm just doing this. I'm not second guessing. And so it really works. And then after I kind of had that first reinforcement, I found myself looking at it and catching myself more and more throughout the week.
I think we had very similar results, Kim, because I sort of forgot as well. And it was kind of powerful, that reminder, when you just suddenly notice it and you're like, oh yeah, I trust myself. It's an excellent reminder. But then as you're used to it, more and more you actually think, I trust myself, and sometimes even glance over at it as a confirmation. I think it's a wonderful tool, and it was very helpful in my life in many ways.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that you say that, Teresa, the fact that it's not just that you look down and then you remember, but then after you've worn it for a couple of days, you start thinking that mantra or that idea or intention on your own, and then you look back down at it, is that reinforcement. So it works both ways. It's really cool.
I can't wait to choose the next one and the next one. And that part's exciting.
It's super exciting. And you know what? They last really well. I had mine on for a whole week, and it's just now starting to fade around the edges. But as great as they last, they're easy to take off with some, I think, baby oil.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. And you're right. I was embarrassed to say mine is holding in really well. So I didn't know, what that meant in terms of hand washing. But I've been in there with basic hygiene, and it's still hanging in there.
Well, I've been doing a lot of pre-holiday cleaning around here before the Thanksgiving holiday, and so it's held up really well. I have not been kind to my poor mindful mark. But anyway, Teresa, tell them what awesome news we have about our new favorite thing, mindful marks.
There's an awesome surprise!
Surprise!
Prize for holistically curious listeners. I'm going to edit that out. That was way too high of a note.
That was too weird. Okay.
You know what? Their dogs will be like holding their ears. But guess what?
What?
So Lumenkind isn't just giving us samples of their awesome mindful marks. They want to give them to our listeners, too.
Yay! That makes me so friggin' happy.
So while supplies last, Lumenkind is offering holistically curious listeners a free gifty pack of mindful marks.
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Did you just say free?
I not only said free, I meant to say completely, 100%, at no cost to you, free.
Wow. Okay. That's really, really awesome, people. I mean, check them out. They're super fun. And there's a few in your gifty pack, so you can share them with a bestie. But just be sure to go to www.lumenkind.co/HC. That's www.lumenkind.co/HC. Get yours today.
Today.
Right? Well, wait till the podcast's done. Then get yours. Bye.
Bye. Welcome back.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. Hey, Teresa, I want to really quickly, before I get into my topic for this week, I wanted to tell you that ever since we recorded episode 7, I have been trying to raise my vibration. That was your topic last time. And I have eliminated a lot of things. Like I usually watch a lot of true crime TV shows and that kind of stuff. And, I was thinking about the fact that you said what you subject yourself to, all those things can affect your vibration. And honestly, I think it's made a huge difference in my life. My husband even said, you seem happier. I feel like I've slept better at night. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
That is so cool. And I guess I need to live by my own words and follow suit, because I've been watching nothing but murder documentaries and I feel kind of down.
Yeah. I mean, how can that not affect your overall, number one, outlook on life, but number two, your vibration, So yeah, I highly recommend you actually listen to your own words and take your own advice and do it. I'm going to continue.
Physician, heal thyself.
Exactly. I mean, I gave myself a week. I told myself for a week, I'm going to do this. And honestly, I'm going to continue. I think it's been 2 weeks now. So I thank you for that.
Thanks, Kim. That's really cool to hear. And I'd like to just put it out there. If any of the listeners have tried it, I'd love to hear what their experiences were.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. And we'd love to hear from you guys. So always feel free to reach out to us on social media. We're on all the platforms. So check it out.
Can I just add something, Kim? On the last podcast, we were talking about what states and countries we had listeners in. And I was so concerned with accuracy that I'd had a slip of the tongue and gave us one more country than we actually had. And I had to go back and edit it. And it was a whole thing because I had to be honest. And you know how karma works. We got paid back big time for being honest. So we have 2 more states and 2 more countries since we last podcasted.
Wow.
So, well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, that's really nice. It makes us feel really good that we're not, that you guys, that this is resonating with you. So obviously I'm learning a lot from Teresa. Hopefully she's enjoying what I'm putting out there and she's listening to. And it's just nice to know that you guys are enjoying it as well. So feel free to let us know what you want us to talk about as well, because you might give us ideas of things that we didn't know and we'd love to look into it. So
please do. And Kim, we have one absolutely amazing fan. We've got lots of amazing listeners, but I think you know who I mean when I talk about our first and biggest fan.
Yes.
I would love, if you know who you are, and I think you do, then let us know what you'd be interested in hearing. That's the least we can do.
It's the least we can do. And I'm going to not keep her anonymous. Lizette, thank you so much for your awesome support. Nobody knows your last name, so it's kind of anonymous, but not really, because we really do appreciate you.
Yes, so much. We love you, girl.
Yeah, we love you. And we love all our listeners.
Yes.
So definitely feel free to reach out. Then we can give your first name a shout out as well. But so Teresa.
Yes.
I want to get into my topic.
Okay.
Because this totally captured my imagination. So I want to talk about Australian researcher Lynne Kelly's amazing book, The Memory Code. And we'll put a link in our show notes where you can get that on Amazon. And you might have heard some podcasts have covered this already. One of our favorites, Mysterious Universe, did a story on it. And that's how I heard about the book. And so I read the book, and I mean, I have not been a voracious reader in a while, and I tore through this book. It's just fascinating. And within this book, she explains her theory for the purpose behind many of the world's great stone monuments like Stonehenge, which of course for the longest time has puzzled archaeologists.
I have not heard of, tell me again, the memory
code.
The memory code. I have not heard the memory code, but you had me at Stonehenge. I am so excited.
Okay.
Let's hear what these things have to do with each other.
Yes, it's very interesting, the whole story, how she come to this conclusion. So Teresa, let's start here. Ancient Celtic poets were famous for the sheer quantity of information they could memorize. I mean, it included thousands of songs and stories, chants and poems that could literally take hours and hours to recite in full. And long before the ancient Celts, Aboriginal Australians were recording vast scores of knowledge to memory and passing it along to successive generations. I mean, these Aboriginal peoples their oral traditions are not only highly detailed and complex, but they can survive literally for thousands, even tens of thousands of years. Yet, Teresa, most of us have trouble remembering a short poem or even a grocery list with more than just a handful of items on it. I mean, I've even struggled to remember something I heard or read literally a couple minutes previously. So how did these ancient peoples remember so much?
I know. I mean, even in this podcast, I was trying to remember the name of things that I was talking about in this podcast.
Right?
They have an idea, a theory?
She does. Well, researcher Lynne Kelly was drawn to this question while investigating Aboriginal knowledge about animals for her PhD in English. See, as a science writer, her scholarship was for research leading to a natural history book about animal behavior and indigenous stories. She had no way of knowing that her simple curiosity about how the indigenous people memorized such vast amounts of knowledge would lead her to a new theory for Stonehenge. It's all started only a few weeks into her PhD program. The first group that she was exploring were the Australian Aboriginals, and they gave her a glimpse at the complexity of the knowledge preserved by these elders. They memorized a vast amount of information about animals, their identification and behavior, habitats and uses. A huge number of species of birds, mammals, reptiles, and invertebrates were accurately described in stories. So Lynn started asking the question, which soon became an obsession: how could they remember so much stuff? And this completely kind of turned her away from her initial reason for being there and what her initial idea for her thesis was. And she got consumed with this idea. She soon discovered that elders use song, story, dance, and mythology to help retain vast stores of factual information when the culture had no recourse to writing. She found that they memorized the names and uses of plants, how to access resources and land management, laws and ethics, geology and astronomy, genealogy, so they knew their rights and who their relatives were, navigation to ensure they could travel long distances when there were no roads or maps, ideas about where they'd come from, and of course, what they believed. So indigenous cultures memorized literally everything on which their survival, physically and culturally, depended.
So you're saying that they learned it, they memorized it through putting it to song and dance?
Exactly.
But that makes sense. I can't get the words to many songs out of my head.
Right. And even years and years later, a song will pop into your head and you'll know, if not the whole, all of the lyrics, quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, how did I remember that? I haven't heard that song in 10 years. So she wasn't far into her research when she began to understand that these song lines were key to the way Indigenous Australians organized this vast store of information so they wouldn't be forgotten. And song lines are sung narratives of the landscape, literally singing tracks that weave across the country and enable every significant place to be known. And at each location, rituals are performed that enact the knowledge associated with that specific place. An elder explained to Lynne Kelly how singing the names of the sacred sites along the song lines created a set of subheadings to the entire knowledge base, a place for knowing about every animal, plant, and person. And these song lines could be sung when moving through the space in reality or in the singer's imagination. So by repeating the stories through songs and dances at sacred landscape sites, information could be memorized, even if it was not used for literally tens, hundreds, or thousands of years. And this explains, Teresa, how Aboriginal memories of land that existed before it was flooded by rising sea levels during the last ice age survived in oral tradition for more than 7,000 years.
Oh my gosh.
It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling.
Songs are far more memorable than prose. Dances can depict animal behavior and tactics for the hunt in a way that words are unable to express. So you can dance the way that, say, a lion moves or a bird moves or something, And you can describe it and express it in a way that words just literally can't do. And mythological characters can act out a vivid set of stories that are just far more unforgettable than if you just tell the story. So Lynn recognized that Aboriginal elders were using their songlines in a similar way to the ancient Greek orators who mentally walked through their buildings and streetscapes from location to location to help them memorize their speeches. They called it the method of loci. Loci, which is Latin for place, can refer to landscape features, ceremonial sites, abstract designs, anything with distinct features where information can be linked to memory. So this means that we associate memory with a location. And the method of loci, yeah, it's fascinating. The method of loci has also been called a memory palace. So the items to be remembered in this mnemonic system are mentally associated with specific physical locations. This method relies on memorized spatial relationships to establish order and recollect memorial content. So, Teresa, for example, if I wanted to remember the periodic table, which I wish I had known this method back when I had to memorize the periodic table, I could use my home as my memory palace or method of loci. And so, say the first element in the periodic table is hydrogen. And since 91% of the sun is made up of hydrogen, I would start by looking at the window and imagine the sun's rays beating into my room, and that would trigger my mind to think of the sun and then hydrogen. In my memory palace, I may look away from my office window towards the doorway and see a red helium balloon floating there. Of course, this would remind me that the second element is helium. I could then continue going all through the elements on the periodic table, allocating them to different locations and objects throughout my home. So then whenever I needed to remember these elements, I simply walked through my memory palace within my imagination to easily remember each and every one.
So I think I've heard of this, Kim. Satirist David Sedaris, in one of his books, talks about learning a foreign language, and he would listen to, similar anyway, he would listen to audio tapes as he was walking through the streets. I believe he was in Paris, but as he was walking through, unfamiliar streets. And then later, he sort of came to put together the location where he learned a thing with the thing that he learned. And if he wanted to retrieve, say, that particular foreign phrase, he'd just think of, that particular street or that deli that he saw or that bakery or whatever. Interesting.
Exactly right. Yes. And it definitely is something that has been utilized. In fact, modern memory champions memorize shuffled decks of cards using the same exact method by using their imaginations to walk through their homes, buildings, or public spaces as they recall each card. But loci is not only linked to places you can touch or visit. Indigenous people also use the stars as memory spaces. For example, groups of stars can represent features on the landscape. Aboriginal lawman Gillar Michael Anderson explains how the Ualayi people, and I think I pronounced that correctly, were able to travel long distances for trade and ceremony. The Ualayi would memorize star maps at night and then learn the songs that talk about their relationship to the land. Each star was associated with a landscape feature, such as a water hole or something like that. So later in the year, they would sing the song as they traveled across country by day. And rather than navigating by the stars themselves served as a memory space. So a few months after Lynn's time with the Aboriginals, she just happened to visit Stonehenge in Great Britain. So here we get to our awesome, exciting part, I think. The rest of it's interesting, but this is where it really captured my imagination. Her visit to Stonehenge was not in any way part of her research, but she was simply there as a tourist. So while on her tour of the site, she began thinking about the people who had built it. And of course, she had been immersed in this whole method of loci, memory palaces, this whole subject. And she realized that Stonehenge was initially a simple stone circle built by people who were at the very start of their transition from a mobile hunting and gathering lifestyle to settling and farming. And she asked herself, what would happen to the knowledge that these people had acquired over thousands of years and embedded in the landscape? I mean, the transition to farming takes time. So she wondered how the settlers would avoid forgetting all their songs and stories and their knowledge of animals and plants if they were no longer visiting the memory locations that their ancestors had spread across the broad countryside.
Oh, interesting.
And yes, and then it hit her. She believed they had replicated a series of landscape sacred places in their local environment. And what could be more perfect than a circle of stones? Each stone representing a former sacred location, each stone acting as a memory aid. Well, once she realized that this purpose for Stonehenge had never been suggested before, she began to research the idea even further, deeply examining the validity of her claims about Stonehenge. And logic told her that if her theory was correct and her ideas explained Stonehenge and all the stone circles of the British Neolithic, then she should be able to see similar patterns in any archaeological site in the world that represented the early stages of settlement. So she continued researching, and the list of astrological sites matching the pattern was growing daily. Teresa, sites such as the Nazca Lines.
Oh, yeah.
The Moa of Easter Island, Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, and Poverty Point in Louisiana. I love when she talks in the book about the Nazca Lines. She theorizes that these native peoples would begin at a point on a line of one of these giant animals that are created, the outline of the animal created within the Nazca Line. And they would start at one point and they would have basically a story song that they would like sing or mentally go throughout the lines. And every twist and turn would trigger that memory. It's just fascinating.
It makes so much sense. For instance, Stonehenge is relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you actually see it in real life, it's much smaller than you think it would be. And then other stone circles, say Avebury Stone Circle in England, is miles and miles to walk around it. So I could see that they could have different lengths of stories, different sets of information, all integrated into these architectural things.
Yes, exactly. And I love that you bring up Avebury.
Avebury,
thank you.
You've probably been to Avebury.
Yes, I have.
You've probably been to Stonehenge, yeah.
No, I actually never did. When our parents went, the time that I could have gone, knowing, as we've talked about in a previous podcast, how I don't like to travel.
Uh-huh.
I begged off the trip and I have been kicking myself ever since. So
it has a presence, but I'll tell you, I went on a camping trip around Avebury Stone Circle and we walked it, and that actually had more presence. And I think it was because it hadn't had quite the volume of tourists that Stonehenge did. And I really believe that eventually all the energy of the visitors changes the energy of the monument somehow.
That sounds completely believable. Like, I definitely can appreciate where you're coming from with that, and I definitely buy it.
But I digress.
But you digress.
I do.
So let's get back to our story here.
Yeah, because,
Yeah. So anyway, so she found this correlate. She found that so many of these sites really fell right into her theory. And of course, the meanings and the purpose for these sites have been a topic of controversy for decades. I mean, archaeologists have had theory after theory as to what was the purpose for many of these sites. But she really believes she'd found the answer, that these sites are all memory spaces or vast memory palaces. So Lynn approached several archaeologists at her university with her theory about the purpose of Stonehenge. And as you can imagine, Teresa, she received a very cold reception.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, here was a woman pursuing a PhD in English with a new theory for Stonehenge.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Right, exactly. So And of course, this being a completely new and revolutionary idea, she was really looking for some validation from the archaeological community that her theory was sound. Even though she was finding this evidence that it was, she really needed that from some people in the community, that could really back her up, people that had studied for a long time. Making a long story short, Lynn eventually made contact with a British Neolithic archaeologist, Dr. Rosamond Cleal, who is the lead editor and contributing author of English Heritage's seminal book, Stonehenge in its Landscape. She met her for several hours over 2 days, and at the end of their meeting, Dr. Cleal stated that Lynn could quote her publicly saying, quote, "This theory is well worth pursuing." Well, that's all it took. After that qualified seal of approval, nothing was going to stop her. So she continued her research over the next 3 years before submitting her thesis, where it was formally assessed by archaeologists and passed. After further review, it was published by the Cambridge University Press as a book entitled, as we mentioned, The Memory Code. And Lynn Kelly's book, The Memory Code, really is, Teresa, a super fascinating read. I mean, I've just barely touched on a lot of its content. I've really just given an overview here. It's really all about the indigenous memory techniques, about Stonehenge and all the archaeological sites that she's researched all over the world. And it's about her journey discovering her theory and the subsequent acknowledgement of its validity from the archaeological community as to the possibility that they were used as memory sites. Well, one last thing I want to mention about Lynn. During her years working on her thesis, Lynn started testing out and implementing these memory methods, as I imagine anybody would. In fact, I've kind of started trying to do it myself just from reading the book. And she began creating song lines in her own neighborhood and linking them to vast amounts of information about every country in the world, about all the prehistory and history, and was rapidly gaining an encyclopedic knowledge base beyond anything she could have imagined possible. And Teresa, she's actually continuing her work with these memory techniques to prepare her for the memory championships that she hopes to participate in. And this woman, she was in her 60s. So, I mean, people think you can't remember things as you get older. You can, And she's also working on her next book, which will be all about these memory techniques and how to use them. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, it's super interesting to me, Kim, because I'm thinking that probably is how we've been designed to learn. Back before writing, back before speech, there was moving through locations and the things you had to know about those locations.
Exactly. Yes. And it's a skill. And if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And
yes,
with Google at our fingertips, I mean, I love me some Google.
I love me some
Google. I love me some Google. But you really do lose the ability to retain information, retain those tidbits of information. I mean, I can't remember my husband's phone number when I lose my cell phone. So, it's kind of scary to think that I don't have that ability, and I can have that ability. I just need to practice it. So I'm actually going to play with some of these things. And like I said, I'm excited for her next book to come out.
That's a great tool. And I love that the recommendation came from Mysterious Universe.
Yes.
You know how some couples have their like their hall pass, their celebrity hall pass?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mysterious Universe would be my podcast hall pass. And if I was ever to cheat on you with another podcast, that would be the one. So I definitely recommend them.
Yes, we love Mysterious Universe, so check them out. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I think there's just one last thing we should say to our dear friends.
I say two things.
Okay.
So first of all, I definitely want them to go to www.lumenkind.co/HC. That's www.lumenkind.co/HC to get their absolutely free gifty pack from Mindful Marks.
Yes. Yoo-hoo! Thank you. Thank you, Lumenkind. That is so awesome.
And when they get their mindful mark from Lumenkind, I think that they can set their intention to stay curious.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.